Now, we are on this program called Say a Word About This. How, the subject is how uh, did sexual deviation and perversion start? How did it get started? And we talked for several weeks now, starting back in Genesis up to today, discussing different things. Started right in the very beginning and showed you where the first lie was told, showed you where the spirit of shame was introduced, showed you that all of these things that we see and we may encounter, we may not encounter all of them, but different ones will encounter different spirits. Well, they're illustrated, and we can find them right in the Word. And a couple of weeks ago, because last week we did not get to tape our program because of the challenges with Skype, we were talking about, we've gotten just through the last part of the 19th chapter of Genesis, and we had seen how the two daughters had conspired. The older daughter, of course, coming to the younger daughter and getting, saying, let's, there's no more men. This is it. And we want to have children. And we know that that spirit that was upon them from Sodom and Gomorrah, they had been able to escape, and their mother didn't escape because she got out, but she only got so far, and she looked back, and we know the story. She became a pillar of salt. Well, they're up in the mountain with their dad in the cave. And we talked about this whole concept of what happens when you get in a cave. And there are lots of people today, or there are people who feel like they're shut off in a cave. They feel like they're isolated. They feel like, they just, that's what's happened because of things around them. Not necessarily in the proverbial cave, in the real cave, but in what's called proverbial cave. And these young girls, they said this is it. Their fiancés they didn't make it. The fiancés thought the dad thought Lot was joking when he said, let's get out of here. So they burn up with all the rest of the people. So they wanted kids. So they had a plot. They got their father drunk. The older daughter got him drunk the first night and had sex with him and produced a nation. And then the younger daughter, the next day, or whenever the next day was, because it's not clear if it's exactly the next day or days following, whatever it was, she got him drunk, and another nation was produced. And then, after all of that, we can go on, and it just sort of drops. We see nothing else for a while about the Ammonites, Ben-Ami, and the Ammonites, and the Moabites. So then we find ourselves back with Abraham to discover another deviation, and understand that in our lives, all of us at one time or another can get ahead of God, can make some choices, whether you believe in God or believe in nature, whatever you believe, can get ahead of the situation. And that was the case of Abram and Sarai. Abram left his country. He knew that he was going to, he'd heard this word from God because he had a relationship with the Lord. He's going to be a great nation. And so nothing happened. 10 years went by, nothing happened. And so what does Sarai do? She gets in the act, and 11 years, and she tells Abram, hey, here's my handmaiden, go and have sex with her. And so Abram listened to his wife. And in doing so, Hagar produced Ishmael. So that whole thing, that whole nation that has come out of Ishmael was a deviation. That wasn't God's best. That was not his plan. That was not what God said, Abram and Sarai, you are going to produce. But Sarah got impatient. She thought, I'm old. Abram's getting older. And from that, we have the Ishmaelites, which are, just incidentally, just so you know, the Libyans, the Iranians, all of those little countries over there that are not Jewish people. They are descendants, for the most part, of Ishmael. And if you look at that word, that Ishmael's hand would be against every other one, and every other one's hand would be against him. Hey, that's what we see going on all the time. And there's this great conflict with the Jewish nation and all the other people there. So that's what Abraham got. And incredible as it may seem to me, God even gave a blessing to Hagar. Or at least he gave her some words to let her know what happened, and there's a nation. But it was not the blessing of promise. And I guess all I'm saying, for those of us that believe and follow the living God, we want to, I believe, wait upon guidance and direction from him. He says in Proverbs, in all our ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct our paths. So that simply requires understanding, following his word, and then keeping our ears, our spiritual ears, attuned to hearing what the Lord has for us. And if we get ahead, as what happened to Abram and Sarai, Abram, then we see this nation that came out that was not the nation that was planned. So that was a deviation or a perversion of what God wanted. And then, when Abram was praying for Lot and all of what he was doing, interceding and all that, my goodness,